Hi, Steve Sander here, June 16th, and I have a little technical problem because I lost my stand that I use to hold the iPhone at a higher level. Anyway, I'm improvising tonight, but I'm going to just talk about my CD that I've made a decision to re-release, Goin To Chicago CD, which I recorded in 1997 with trumpeter Marcus Belgrave, and I'm going to re-release it on July 9th. There's a full moon that day, and it's also my grandmother's birthday. Elsie Sandner, her maiden name was Nagelreiter. Anyway, so I love my grandma, of course, like a lot of other people. And so her birthday falls on a full moon, and I'm going to re-release the CD and sell it for a reduced price, give away some free tracks, and try to start the ball rolling in some of the techniques I've learned with the online marketing class, which I'm going to talk about in another day. But today I want to talk about what it was like to record the Goin To Chicago CD with Marcus Belgrave. I met Marcus Belgrave in 1986 in Traverse City when I was playing a piano bar there called the Argonne on Union Street. And I was playing, and I would hear these remarks coming from behind me, like positive, hey, wait, yeah, and stuff like that coming from behind me. And I turned around and I saw this guy sitting there, and I didn't think too much of it. And then he introduced himself to me, and I realized this was Marcus Belgrave, a well-known jazz trumpet player from Detroit. And it started off a years-long friendship. On that night that I met him, I just happened to bring my trumpet that night because I used it as part of my act in those days. I would play piano with one hand and trumpet with the other hand, and sometimes as a novelty. My trumpet chops never were as good as they were when I was actually 19 years old. I was at my peak. But I did have my trumpet with me that night, so Marcus picked up my trumpet. He played. We played together for the rest of the night, and then we talked a little bit. It was his 50th birthday, so and we both knew a common person, Art Hodes, who was a old-time piano player from Chicago who played traditional jazz for the most part. A super sweet guy. I had met him actually up here at the yoga retreat at Song of the Morning in the 70s. And my dad had met him back in the early 50s in Chicago. So my dad said, my God, you met Art Hodes? He was old when I met him back in 1951 or whatever. So, but anyway, Art Hodes had been playing in Chicago since the 1920s, and he has a couple of interesting books that he's written just as a side note. And it was an honor to meet him. He actually eventually came to my home in Crystal Lake one time, which was a very nice thing. So anyway, Marcus Belgrave had done a CD recording, and it's actually on a cassette tape with Art Hodes. So we talked about him, and we hit it off pretty well. And then I asked him to play on my recording session in Chicago. I called him up, and I didn't hear from him for a few days, and I thought, oh well, he's probably not interested. So one night, it was fairly late to get a business call at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. He called me up and says, hey, Steve, I want to be on that session. So we arranged things for Marcus to fly to Chicago and play on my recording session, which was called Goin To Chicago, was the title of the CD. And I had sent him a few charts ahead of time, and some of the stuff we just improvised. And we did it in 1 or 2 takes. It was basically a live recording. I remember he came in right from the airport, and my friend Ginger picked him up, and he came right in, and we just started playing. I said, do you know what was the first song he recorded? I'm not da 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 ba da ba 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 da da. Name that tune. I Was Doing All Right is the name of the song, a George Gershwin tune. He goes, oh yeah, Louis, really did that song. Louis Armstrong did have a recording of that song. I was more familiar with the Stan Getz version and the Ella Fitzgerald version. But anyway, we did that song, and I think we used every song that we recorded that day. It went onto the CD. We did the complete CD in just an afternoon with Charles McFarlane on drums, and it was a quartet. Yeah, we had Stuart Miller on bass. So this is really good for me to do these videos. It really prods my memory. But anyway, Stuart Miller, Charles McFarlane, and I worked together often as a trio. So we were used to playing with each other and fairly tight. And Marcus is the consummate professional. He just fit right in. So we had a good time. Then we did a gig, I think that night or the next night at Andy's. And that was an interesting gig because France Jackson stopped by. Now, France Jackson was a real old timer. He was 91, I believe, at the time we played that gig at Andy's with Marcus Belgrave. And he had played with Fletcher Henderson, I believe, in the 20s. So he was in this similar category to Art Hodes, some of the old timers. I loved working with the old time musicians. I just thought that was great and fascinating. So France Jackson came. He's 91 years old. And he says, "Hey, you mind if I sit in?" I go, "No, not at all." And I figured, oh, France Jackson, he'll play a couple of songs and take a couple of short solos. Well, France Jackson played the whole night, and he was engaged. He would play not short solos. He would play these fantastic solos, and he would give us a little few tips along the way. And like body and soul, he goes, "Don't do body and soul too slow, like a draggy ballad. You give it a little bit of a beat to it." And I go, "Yeah, that. He's got that Coleman Hawkins thing going." So he played the whole night, and he outdid the rest of us youngsters that night, I remember. And then Marcus actually wanted to go join him after the gig, but France Jackson lived on the south side, and I was living on the north side of Chicago, on St. Louis, in Peterson. So I said, "Gee, Marcus, you got to catch a plane tomorrow. I don't think that's going to work if you stayed, because your stuff is at my house." Anyway, it ended up, Marcus came back to my house, and we had a good time watching some, we watched recordings of the Lincoln Jazz Center Orchestra, which Marcus used to play in, and we just had a good time hanging out, and some of my friends were hanging out at the session, had a pretty good group of people watching this session. And then, and also afterwards at my house, a couple of us hung out with Marcus. So it was a great hang to be with Marcus, a great musical experience, and I'm looking forward to re-releasing Goin To Chicago CD, July 9th. It's going to be at a reduced price, and there'll be some free tracks. And one of my goals, according to what I'm learning in my marketing, is to expand my email list. And I'm going to try to do that with this release and with some Facebook advertising. And I'll go more into detail, but I'm just a beginner. But I think musicians, we've got to get on track and get our act together, marketing our music. Gosh, I know so many good musicians that, if I can find the method for this to be somewhat successful, then other musicians can at least be as successful. Thank you. And to be continued.